Twisty Storytime Adventures. Mr. Twisty Storytime Adventures. Mr. Twisty Storytime Adventures. Here comes Mr. Twisty.
Hi there, my friends. I'm Mr. Twisty, coming your way with stories and laughter for you every day. From my treehouse on the ground where the fun never ends with magic, balloons, and stories, let's be best friends. With jokes that'll delight, sometimes, and magic tricks too. Each day brings new wonders and joy just for you. Adventures await with each turn of the page. Come join the excitement no matter your age. We'll twist up some fun with balloons of all shapes and dive into stories through forests and lakes. Creativity's key in all that we do. So let's get started. There's so much to do. Hi, friends. Welcome back to another Storytime Adventure. I love hanging out with you every week, and I am so happy to see you again. Are you ready for another Storytime Adventure? Oh no, here it comes. I can feel some seriously silly jokes brewing. What is a snake's best school subject? History. Where do cows go on December 31st? A Moo Year's Eve party? What do cows like to read? Catalogs. I have to stop. I have a show to do. I have chosen a very special story for today, written by a friend of mine. While I love to be funny, this is a more serious story, but one I really love. What do you get when you cross a little boy who needs some help and a loving family? This week's story, Foster to Friends by Patricia Russell. Hi, my name is Ezekiel. I am 5 years old and I live in New York with my mom and little sister Zoe. She just turned 4. Several months ago, Dominic moved in with us too. He's 6. We weren't sure how long he would be living here, but it's fun having a friend my age to play with. Dominic is in foster care, and we are a foster family. I guess that makes Dominic my foster brother. Do you know what foster care is? Foster care is when children need to stay with another family because their parents aren't able to take care of them. A special person called a home finder helps find a safe place for kids in foster care to stay. There are times when kids stay with other family members like an aunt or an uncle or grandparents. However, most of the time they stay with a family they have never met. Children in foster care stay with their foster family until they're able to go back home. Some children, like me, are adopted by their foster families if they aren't able to go back to their birth families. Do you know what adoption is? It's when parents choose their children to be their family. In my case, my mom adopted my sister and me. Even though we weren't in her tummy before we were born, we are a family. Basically, adoption is when love makes a family. I bet staying with a new family would be scary. We had never met Dominic before he came to live with us. He was afraid because he didn't know who we were either. Our neighborhood isn't close to where he lives, so he wasn't familiar with our town. Our house is different too. In fact, everything about our life is different from what Dominic was used to. He was also really sad because he missed his mom. How do you think you would feel if you had to suddenly go live with a new family? Mommy said kids in foster care like Dominic are often overwhelmed with emotions. They can feel scared, nervous, sad, confused, angry, and anxious. That is why it's important to treat friends like Dominic with kindness and be patient with them while they adjust to a new environment. Kids in foster care sometimes struggle to feel like they fit in. I can't imagine how hard it would be to leave my mom and live somewhere else, not knowing when I could go home. They must also adapt to a whole new life, new family, new neighborhood, new school, and new friends. Even the rules at a foster family's house are usually different. What are some ways we can help friends like Dominic during this transition? Children in foster care have a caseworker who visits them often to make sure they are safe and doing well in their foster home. Dominic's caseworker, Miss Ann, brought him to our house for the first time after dinner one night. He didn't bring a suitcase or anything else with him except one of his favorite stuffies. I was excited to show him my dinosaurs, but Mommy said it was time for bed. Dominic was nervous about being in his own room because he didn't have anyone to share it with. At his house, he sleeps with his mom in her room. I told him he could share my room until he got used to being with us. I have bunk beds. I slept on the top, and Dominic slept on the bottom. Dominic missed his family and had a hard time going to sleep the first night. I tried to make him feel better, but I didn't know what to say, so we just stayed up talking about stuff he liked to do in his life at home. I learned a lot about him and his family, and I told him about ours. We stayed up really late, but Mommy wasn't mad, even though it was a school night. The next day was Friday. Zoe and I went to school, and Mommy took Dominic to the doctor for a checkup. After school, we showed him our playroom and some of our toys, but he didn't feel like playing. He was still really sad and missed his mom. We decided to cheer him up by making his favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with hot dogs. After dinner, Mommy let us make our own ice cream sundaes. That made him feel a little bit better. Then we had a movie night at home, and we let Dominic pick the movie. The first few days at our house were especially hard for Dominic. He missed his mom so much and just wanted to go home. He didn't even want to take off his sweatshirt because it smelled like his mom. Mommy promised not to wash it, but also took him shopping so he could pick out some new clothes. Do you have things that remind you of your loved ones? What are they? And how do they make you feel? On Monday, Mommy drove us to school and I showed Dominic where his classroom was. He had to change schools because ours is closer than the one where he lives. He's in first grade and I'm in kindergarten. Even though we weren't in the same class, we got to play together at recess, so I introduced him to some of my friends. The first day was difficult for him. He said he didn't feel like he fit in. He didn't know anyone, and the kids in his class were learning different things than he was at his school, which was very confusing. What are some things you can do to help make our friends in foster care feel more comfortable? Dominic started to settle in after a couple of weeks. He didn't mind staying with us, but he would have preferred to go home where he doesn't have so many rules. He's allowed to play when he gets home from school and stay up late to watch TV. He also gets lots of snacks at home. We eat a lot of healthy snacks like apples and grapes, and we always have vegetables with dinner. We're allowed to play after we finish our homework, but we've never played video games and definitely aren't allowed to stay up late watching TV. It was hard for Dominic to get used to my family's rules. What are some of the rules in your house? On Saturdays, we usually run errands and go to church. Zoe and I have chores to do too. Some we do every day, like feeding the dog and picking up our toys. On weekends, we also make our beds. When our chores are done, we get to do fun stuff. Dominic didn't like doing chores. He doesn't have to do any at his mom's house, and he thinks it's boring. Although, he did enjoy helping Mommy cook. Doing chores and running errands were new to him, and getting used to our rules was a big adjustment. Mommy suggested he choose a couple of chores he would like to be responsible for instead of her deciding for him. He seemed to like that idea much better. He chose to help with dinner and collect the trash. What are some of the things you are responsible for at your house? How are they different from those of your friends? A few weekends after Dominic arrived at our house, my mom planned a special day for us, a surprise visit to the Children's Museum. We played with all kinds of cool things. Then we went to dinner at our favorite restaurant and the drive-in. We brought our own candy and popcorn and snuggled in the back of the truck to watch the movie. Dominic said that was his favorite day with us yet. He had never been to any of those places and asked Mommy if we could go again sometime. The next day, I introduced Dominic to some of our neighborhood friends. Many of them didn't understand why he was staying with us. They asked a lot of questions about why he wasn't at home with his mother. That hurt Dominic's feelings. I don't think he understands why either. None of us did. Mommy said his mom needed help because she wasn't feeling well, and until she was better, Dominic needed a safe place to stay. I kept praying she would be okay because Dominic really missed her. It was hard to imagine what could make her so sick or why he wasn't allowed to stay with another family member. But I was okay with him staying with us. I felt bad for Dominic when the other kids were asking so many questions. It took a while for them to warm up to him. At first, they thought he was different because he was living with strangers instead of his family. They also thought it was weird that he didn't do the same kinds of things we do, like play on a soccer team or go to the movies. He had never had the chance to do those things, and that made him sad. How do you think you would feel if your friends got to do something you couldn't, or if they had toys and other things that you didn't have? I told my friends that Dominic actually had a lot in common with us and that it wasn't his fault he had to stay with my family. I asked them to be kind and suggested we drop the interrogation and have a bike race around the neighborhood. By the way, interrogation is a fancy word for asking a lot of questions. My mom taught me that. One of our neighbors let us borrow a bike for Dominic so he wasn't excluded. It turns out he is an excellent racer and tied my friend Sophia for first place. After that, we played football the rest of the afternoon. By the end of the day, no one asked any more questions or mentioned Dominic being in foster care again. A few days later, Dominic had his first visit with his mom. He was so happy. He hadn't seen her since he got to our house. We were all excited for him, even though we didn't get to meet her. It was a short visit, but he told her all about the museum, the drive-in, and his new school. His mom was happy to hear about his adventures. She missed him a lot and couldn't wait for Dominic to return home. We still weren't sure when that would be, but hoped he would be able to go back soon. Dominic began spending time with his mom on Wednesdays after school and Sunday mornings. Those days were a roller coaster of emotions for Dominic. In the morning, he was happy and excited to see his mom, but he was always sad after he had to say goodbye to her. Sometimes his mom missed the meetings, and that made Dominic even more upset. It was hard to see him so distraught on those days. I never knew what to say or how to be a good friend when he had to leave his mom. How do you think you could demonstrate being a good friend to someone in foster care who misses their family? By then, we were well into the school year and still didn't know when Dominic would be able to go home. Mommy said it would probably be a couple more months and that he might even be with us for Christmas. I knew that would really upset him. I decided to ask Santa to make sure Dominic could go home in time for the holiday. I wrote him a letter and mailed it right away, even though it wasn't even Halloween yet. One of my favorite things to do in the fall is carve pumpkins. Every year, right before Halloween, my aunt throws a big party and invites lots of people to carve pumpkins. She even has a donut eating contest, and we bobbed for apples. This year, Dominic went with us. He had never been to a party like that before. It was so much fun, and Zoe won the donut eating contest. Dominic had a lot of fun at the party. He had never carved a pumpkin before. We gave him a quick lesson and got right to work. We also saved the seeds when we pulled the insides out of our pumpkins so we could roast them later. Dominic carved a skeleton in his pumpkin. I carved a ghost, and Zoe had Mommy help her carve a cat. Mommy decided on a haunted house. They looked awesome lit up on our front porch. Mommy sent a picture to Miss Ann so she could send it to Dominic's mom. We also helped Mommy bake the pumpkin seeds when we got home. One of the things Dominic and I have in common is that we both love Halloween. After the party, we finalized our plans for trick-or-treating. We decided to go with our friends in the neighborhood, but Dominic's mom wanted us to go to their house. He lives pretty far away, and Halloween wasn't one of the days Dominic saw his mom. Instead, Mommy and Miss Ann came up with a solution that worked for everyone. We all met at a trunk or treat. That way, we were able to include Dominic's mom. The trunk or treat was awesome. All of us dressed up in costume, even Mommy. She was Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. I was a dinosaur. Zoe was a unicorn, and Dominic was Spider-Man. He was especially excited to see his mom, and I was excited to finally meet her. She seemed really nice. Miss Ann was there too. She and Dominic's mom pretended to be judges and voted on the best costume. Dominic earned first place for the bravest. Mine was deemed scariest, and Zoe's was the most imaginative. It was so much fun, and we each got lots of candy. Dominic started seeing his mom more often right after Halloween, and Miss Ann said it was almost time for him to go back home. I was going to miss having him around, but I knew how much he missed his mom, so I was happy for him. He even started spending some nights at his mom's house. The closer it got to Dominic's return home, the harder it seemed to be on him. When he came back from his mom's house, he was really upset that he couldn't stay with her for good, and he was mad about having to follow my mom's rules. He was usually in a bad mood those days and didn't even want to play with Zoe and me. He often went to his room as soon as he returned and stayed by himself the rest of the night. Mommy said we needed to understand how difficult that was for Dominic and give him some space. How do you think kids in foster care would feel in this situation? What do you think you could do to help them feel better? In November, visits with Dominic's mom became more frequent, along with the overnights. We were looking forward to our school break for Thanksgiving, and Dominic was excited to see his mom. He spent all Thanksgiving Day and overnight with her. I was a little sad that we weren't with him on such a special occasion because it felt like he was part of our family now, but I was glad he could be with his mom. He told me they made a special fruitcake together, along with his favorite dessert, pumpkin pie. The Saturday after Thanksgiving, we went on our annual family Christmas tree outing with Grammy, Poppy, Auntie, Uncle, and our cousins. When we got home, we put up the Christmas tree and all of our decorations. Dominic thought that was silly. He said it was too early to decorate for Christmas and that my mom had way too many decorations. That part is true. Christmas is one of my mom's favorite holidays, so we start decorating early. That's one of our family traditions. What kind of traditions do you have that might be different from those of others? Why might it be difficult for children in foster care to adjust to having different traditions? Dominic continued visiting his mom throughout the month of December. One day, I overheard Mommy and Miss Ann discussing when he would be going home. From what I heard, I knew it would be soon. When we visited Santa at the mall, I told him all I wanted was for Dominic to be home in time for Christmas with his mom. I also asked him if he received the letter I wrote in October. He acknowledged receipt and said he would do everything he could to make that happen. By the sounds of it, my wish was coming true. Miss Ann stopped by one Friday late in December after school to take Dominic to his mom's house for the whole weekend. When they returned on Sunday, she told him the next time she picked him up, he would be going home for good. Dominic could hardly contain his excitement. He was so excited, he jumped up and down and shouted for joy. He begged her to take him back home right then and there, but Miss Ann said he had to wait. Dominic said that week went slower than molasses. 2 days before Christmas, the day finally came, Dominic's go-home day. It was sad to say goodbye, but we all knew it was best for Dominic. Zoe and I made him cards so he would remember us. Mommy gave him a photo album with lots of pictures of the things we did together. He loved all of our gifts. We gave him hugs and walked out to the car with him. Zoe and I waved until we couldn't see Miss Ann's car anymore. I hope we see him again someday. A few days after Dominic left, Mommy got a call from Miss Rachel, a home finder from the foster agency. She told Mommy a newborn baby boy just came into foster care and needed a home. This time, the baby was pre-adoptive. That meant the baby would need to go to a foster family who would be willing to adopt him if he wasn't able to go back to his parents. Guess who's coming to our house in a couple of days? Mr. Twisty's Storytime Adventure is brought to you by Birthday Buddy, the magical birthday countdown companion, like Elf on a Shelf, but making birthdays magical. For more information, visit MrTwisty.com. I really like that story. If you did too, with your parents' permission, you can click below at the link in the description. I really like that story. I really like learning about foster care and trying to understand what it would be like to be a foster family. What do you think it would be like to have to live with a new family for a while? How could you be a good friend to someone in foster care? I think Dominic was brave, and I think Ezekiel's family was very kind and loving. I love stories about brave kids and loving families. They make my heart sing. Uh-oh, wait for it. I feel some seriously silly jokes coming on. All that talk about Christmas made me wonder, who delivers presents to sharks on Christmas? Santa Jaws! And who delivers Christmas presents to dogs? Santa Paws! Christmas is coming. I wonder if Santa would be willing to join us here in the treehouse. I'll have to ask him. What happened to the shark when he got famous? He became a starfish. I tried to watch TV with my dogs last night. It didn't work out so well. They kept pressing pause. I enjoy sharing Foster to friends with you. There are so many different types of books to read, and I love them all. Some books are funny. Some books take me on amazing adventures. And some books are about famous people. There are so many different kinds of books. Today's story helped me learn about foster care and think about what it would be like to be a foster kid or a foster family. Families really do come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. Since Ezekiel dressed as a dinosaur for Halloween, I thought I might make you a balloon animal dinosaur today. All right, friends, I have to go now, but let's meet up again next week right here in my treehouse. You want me to go on? Okay, next week I promise a whole lot more of everything that made today special. I hope you will join us for another Mr. Twisty Storytime Adventure. See you next week, my friend.
Mr. Twisty Storytime Adventures. Mr. Twisty Storytime Adventures. Mr. Twisty Storytime Adventures. So much fun with Mr. Twisty.